Minds? No, the terrorists still seek to destroy America and her allies and all that it is that we stand for. Freedom, tolerance, equality. The terrorists have not changed their minds.
How would she know? Anyway, welcome back to Hardball and the Politics Fix. Our roundtable tonight, MSNBC political analyst Michelle Bernard and Rick Hurt. I have no idea where that message is coming from. Is that Randy Schuneman writing those notes? Where do they come from, Rick Hertzberg?
I guess so.
Who writes that stuff for her? Then we got a guy out there called Nick the Plumber, whatever his name is, saying Israel's going to die tomorrow. Where do they get this stuff from? They just make it up.
It's a last-minute attempt to try to switch the conversation from the economy back to terrorism and hope that that'll bring. But
there ought to be some foundation when people make these statements.
It's Randy the neocon.
I am amazed. I don't get it. Let's talk about a couple of these things. The word socialism has not reared its head in this country for many a decade. Rick Hertzberg, you and I have talked politics for 100 years. All of a sudden, my brother calls me up from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, one of those collar counties, and said the biggest concern up here is socialism because, and he's a smart guy, my brother, and he said people are worried that if Obama gets in there, we'll socialize medicine. You'll have to wait in line to get under a rationing system. In other words, you can't get fee for service. You have to wait in line like in Britain's, whatever, the old Labor Party system, and wait your turn and probably never get to live to get that heart transplant. That is the fear.
And it's crazy.
Is it?
Yeah, sure it is. It's not even working because.
Well, knock down that argument then, because it's apparently cutting up there in the burbs.
They always make the National Health Service of England the bad example. They spend what, about a third of what we spend per capita on medical care.
And the dollars make $1.25 an hour, though, don't they?
Pump in another 2/3.
Yeah.
Plus the rest of Europe. Everybody has socialized medicine except us. Everybody. Every advanced country.
Well, why do they come here when they're rich to get fixed then?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm just asking. Why does every potentate in the world come to the United States to get fixed when they're threatened with death?
They don't always.
The worst people in the world coming.
Yeah, the worst ones
This is the argument between left and right. Socialized medicine, if you want to call it that, is probably better for the average person. But it doesn't give you what? There's some value added in commercial medicine, right?
Most of the extra money goes to the insurance companies who are trying to avoid covering anybody. We spend way more on bureaucracy than any socialized medicine system. Our system is totally bureaucratic ridden, and you know that if you ever try to file a form.
Yeah.
Well,
every time you go to a doctor's office, there's 4 people out front doing the paperwork and 1 doctor in the back room trying to make it.
The system's not perfect, but nobody wants socialized medicine. But
yes, they do.
Well, maybe you do. I don't. I know a lot of people who don't want it. But what I will tell you is that there are a lot of this message is resounding with his base. It is not doing anything to help the McCain campaign.
It's helping Republicans vote Republican.
Undecided. Exactly. The same people who would vote for him, whether or not he used the word socialism or Marxism, are still going to vote for John McCain.
I agree with that. I think it's only working with the base. Republicans don't like it because that's why they're Republicans. Independents still like him. Here's an issue that I'm stunned by. After all this very dangerous kind of talk, and she's entitled to do it, she's a very good speaker, Governor Palin, warning of terrorism's resurgence and how we have to be afraid of it. Fine, it's a fair case. They're not winning a point on this issue. The latest polling shows about a 38-38 push on who's going to make you safe.
Yeah.
So why is that? How did Barack Obama win his spurs as a national defender? How did he get even with John McCain, the lifetime soldier?
Steadiness. That's how he did it. It's his response to the financial crisis. It sort of transfers to the other end, to terrorism. Who do you want in charge when something bad happens? You don't want
Captain Queeg, do you?
No, not really.
You don't want the guy with the ball bearings in his hand.
And from a substantive point of view, Al-Qaeda seems to want to continue the Bush policy.
How do you know that?
Very good for them. Well, ask Richard Clark. CIA people and experts on terrorism seem to agree on that.
Well, what would be the logic in keeping a conservative, militaristic, right-wing government, if you will, as opposed to a liberal government? What would be the advantage to the enemy of that?
The advantage is that we bleed in. It's seen as a religious war, Christians against Muslims. It rallies Muslims it makes Muslims more extreme, more receptive to their message. It's not that complicated.
So it's like in Lawrence of Arabia, my favorite movie, where the Arab terrorists would blow up the trains knowing they'd be rebuilt because they wanted to bleed the Turkish Empire.
Right.
And they did.
And we're the Ottomans in this scenario.
Let me ask you about the issues that are going to work for McCain. I find it interesting that Hillary Clinton ran on experience, and I think it was a strategic mistake because everybody in the Democratic side wanted change. Now John McCain comes along and said experience, and he's not winning. Has he made the same blunder that Hillary Clinton made, which is people would rather have experience than change?
It's the same blunder, but he's had a lot of blunders. He has not had one strong message throughout the entire campaign. And going back to your earlier question, I think it's not just the steadiness. We have been talking about the economy, and John McCain did himself a lot of damage when he suspended his campaign to come back and deal with the Wall Street bailout. It did not look like the actions of a leader.
Do you think it was a mistake to spend 1 week attacking Barack for being a celebrity in Berlin, the next week spending a week attacking him for saying lipstick on a pig, the next week attacking him for something else? Do you think it was a mistake?
Well, it was a mistake.
They keep changing the attack line?
Well, it didn't help. I mean, people will tell you, Pat Buchanan loves to say that attack ads work, and negative ads work, but they have not worked for the McCain campaign, and it left the base and it left a lot of the electorate wondering what is the message, and also how are you going to get us out of this mess? I don't think people really cared about lipstick on a pig. They care about pocketbook issues and paying for gasoline.
Who's going to win tomorrow?
I don't know. I think the polls are closer. I think that it is a lot closer than the polls are telling us.
So NBC's wrong at 8 points.
I don't know. I don't trust the polls.
Rick Hertzberg, how close will it be? Closer than 8?
I'm too superstitious for this kind of talk.
Exactly. It ain't over till the fat lady sings.
Everybody I know is too superstitious. But
Rick, you're not the cover of Sports Illustrated. You can't jinx this whole thing with one comment. But I'll leave you off the hook, my old pal. Michelle Bernard, thank you as always. Rick Hertzberg, neither one want to guess. NBC guesses 8 points going into this thing. We'll be right back in an hour for a live edition of Hardball. And join me tomorrow night along with Keith Olbermann and David Gregory for NBC's the most exciting coverage of the election tomorrow night. It'll go on all night.